This is the all-new Audi E-Tron, Germany's long-awaited answer to the likes of the Tesla Model X and Jaguar I-Pace as a premium long-range electric vehicle that's big enough to cope with family life. Now, it's not cheap, with a starting price of about €100,000 before government grants, but it does claim to offer a pretty impressive 390 kilometres on a single charge, as well as all the usual high-tech Audi stuff and those always appealing 4 rings on the front. Now, styling-wise, they have gone with a very subtle approach here in that it whispers rather than shouts that it's electric. With this tightly clustered custom grille, your main clue on what is otherwise a very typical Audi SUV silhouette. Now, some people will really like that, others will prefer the shoutier looks of the Jag or the cool falcon doors of the Tesla. But I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on the e-tron styling in the comments section below, and if you'd like to subscribe while you're there, even better. Personally, I do like it, although I think I definitely have to have it in a slightly more exciting colour, and I'm also a little bit devastated to see that it hasn't been specced with those cool camera wing mirrors, because God knows I do love a gimmick, but also just to differentiate it from the competition slightly. But anyway, we'll move on to the slightly more important areas of space and practicality. With a boot capacity of 615 litres, the e-tron is one of the most spacious electric options you can buy. It's got a good wide opening, barely any load lip, and the finish is top notch back here. Everything is really nicely lined and soft to touch. It also comes with a space saver spare wheel, something which you will not find in a Tesla, and you won't have to give up any of that boot space to your charging cables because there's a handy area under the bonnet where you can store those instead. Other handy features include shopping bag hooks, tether points, and back seats that will fold completely flat at the pull of a lever. And a fancy electric tailgate, naturally enough. As for the back, before I even get into the space side of things, the first thing that jumps out is the build quality, because the fit and finish and attention to detail even back here is second to none. And there's been no obvious weight saving like you can sometimes get with other electric cars. This is very much your typical luxury Audi experience. Legroom is plentiful, as is headroom, and you've got an almost flat floor across the middle, meaning that you should be able to see 3 back here quite comfortably. Then when it's less crowded, you've got a pull-down centre armrest, complete with cup holders. And one thing they won't have to argue about back here is temperature, because it's got 4-zone climate control via this very impressive touchscreen control. I've also got a couple of USB charging ports thrown in underneath for good measure. All in all, I think I would be a very, very happy camper back here, but let's see what life is like for the driver. And again, in the front, it's very much business as usual here for an Audi customer, in that it's very similar in design and layout to what's been going into the interiors of most new Audi models, like the A6 and A7 and even A1. But just because we've seen it before, it doesn't make it any less spectacular. And this dual screen infotainment setup, combined with the great Audi virtual cockpit, still has the wow factor for me anyway. Then again, the great quality materials makes it feel very typically Audi in the best possible way. One of the only real differences you'll spot is the gear lever, which has been built into this very nice little handrest, which means that selecting park, go or reverse is as effortless as possible. And really, with an electric car, that's all you need to worry about. They've also made great use of the space in this central storage unit with a couple of hidden cup holders, some more storage under here, and then a very clever vertical setup for the wireless phone charging. It's about as well equipped as you might expect for the price tag, with standard features including 20-inch alloy wheels, LED headlamps and adaptive air suspension. Then in here you get all 3 of these very impressive screens. You've got electric adjustment in the seats with lumbar support and a memory function, leather and Alcantara upholstery, you've got sat-nav, a reversing camera, ambient lighting, and then lots of very clever safety features like active lane keep assist and pre-sense city braking. So the vital stats on the road are a 95 kilowatt hour battery, 2 electric motors and quattro 4-wheel drive as standard. which gives it a combined power output of about 350 horsepower as well as 664 newton meters of torque on top. The WLTP tested range says up to 390 kilometers, but that will depend hugely on how and where you drive it. And the same can be said for most cars, in fairness. It's just a little bit more relevant with an EV when you can't just pull in and fill up at a fuel station in 5 minutes. The claimed energy usage is between 24 and 26 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and sure enough, I've been managing to average 26, which puts that total range figure at closer to 360 kilometers, which, to be fair, is still pretty impressive and certainly more than I'd be likely to do in a single day anyway. So once you have the help of a home charger, that should pretty much make the range anxiety thing a bit irrelevant at this stage. Unless, of course, you're planning on doing much longer distances, in which case the e-tron has the handy feature of being able to charge at 150 kilowatt hours per hour, meaning that you'll be able to get close to a full charge in just 30 minutes if you happen to come across one of the new Ionity chargers that Audi themselves are helping to roll out on main motorway routes across the country. As for what it's like to drive, I think it sounds much quicker on paper than it actually feels in real life, and that's mainly down to the fact that this is a very, very heavy car. In fact, it weighs over 2.5 tons, and you really do feel that on the road. Now, I'm not saying that it feels sluggish, but it does just lack the outright pace of the likes of the I-Pace or the Model X. And I think the experience in general is a much more normal or typical SUV one than what you'll get in either of those rivals. But again, some people are really going to dig that normality and the fact that the silence and the slightly heavy feel, it really doesn't feel much different than driving a typical Audi SUV. Which means that the steering feels well weighted, the suspension is exceptionally comfortable, especially with that air suspension, and it just feels reassuringly comfortable and capable, even if it does lack a bit of excitement. Now, there is a drive mode selector which will help to liven things up slightly by putting it in dynamic mode, but it seems to have a scarily detrimental impact on the range, and I just don't think it's worth it because it just doesn't feel built for that. So it's definitely one that you'll be buying more for the comfort and refinement rather than outright thrills. And that's how I feel about the e-tron as a package in general. I think there's lots of different types of EV buyers out there, some that want to shout it from the rooftops with the fastest and most exciting thing to look at, or those who are after something quietly sophisticated that will do everything their regular car does with not only minimal impact on the environment, but with minimal fuss in general. And I think the e-tron is pretty much the perfect solution to that. As usual, I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Please do like and share if you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to see more like it, please hit subscribe.